I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty sure I would have shit my pants. I'm telling you, I would have been absolutely frozen. So you're saying there's no way someone else could have gotten inside? I'm not sure what's worse, the fact that it happened or not having anyone believe you. Because you can't explain everything in life, and this is Life Unexplained. Hello, and welcome to Life Unexplained. I'm your host, Kai Gehring, and I believe there are a whole lot of unexplainable, incredible stories in our world that deserve to be heard. I aim to find guests who have had unusual, even supernatural type experiences, the kind of stories that you can't tell just anyone. This is the inaugural episode, hopefully the first of many, and I am proud to introduce to you the first guest to grace our show, my grandmother, Patricia Curtis. I hope you enjoy the podcast, and there will be much more to come in the future.
My name is Pat Curtis, and I'm Kylan's grandmother. And I have had an experience of living in a haunted home. Back in the 70s, it was a rental home in Klamath Falls, Oregon, on a street was called Homedale. And I believe the home was probably built in the 30s or 40s. It was a cinder block home, and it was located right next to one of the canals in Klamath Falls. And not long after we moved into the house, we had 3 small children, and we noticed one night we were laying in bed, and all of a sudden we heard loud pounding on the wall, the bedroom wall, from the outside of the house. It was like, I thought it sounded like somebody was using a sledgehammer on the house. And I thought for sure the wall was going to be broken into or at least damaged really bad. So my husband ran outside to look, and we could tell where the banging was coming from. And there was not one mark on it. Not one mark on the house, on the cinder blocks, nothing. So we really didn't know what to think. Everything centered around the master bedroom to start with. And a little while after the banging was noises under the bed. And what it sounded like was somebody was taking long nails or their fingernails or claws or something and scraping the underneath of our bed. And there was nothing there. There was nothing there, but it was a very scary sound, and all you can imagine is long claws that are scraping the underneath of your mattress.
Was this just at night?
This was only at night to start with. It was only at night. From the master bedroom, it worked its way out of the master bedroom, and then the master bedroom went out into the dining room and then to the living room. And we started hearing footsteps coming out of the master bedroom, like heavy men's footsteps, like boots. And you could almost feel the footsteps where they were going. You could hear it, and it would come out into the living room and just go in circles around the reclining chair out there. And that went on for some time, just the footsteps. From there, it kind of worked its way in more of the house, like into the kids' rooms, which was frightening. But it's odd because when this was all happening, and I always thought I would be scared to death if I ever lived in a house that had a ghost or that had something like that I didn't understand. But for some reason, I knew this wasn't going to hurt me. and I just had that feeling that it wasn't going to hurt us, and so I let it go until later on down the line. We had a heating grate in the house that was connecting the kitchen to the dining area, and it was a big square grate, and it went down to under the house where the heater was, and you could hear really well if there was anything going on in the basement. And I started hearing horrible, horrible growling and snarling, and the only thing I could attest it to is like wild beasts fighting and snarling and growling. I mean, it wasn't your ordinary cat sound of cats outside. It was vicious, very vicious, and um, I knew there was something under there. I don't know what I didn't have any idea what it was, but that noise was horrible, and I ended up calling the landlord and telling him to look under the house because there was definitely something under the house. And he did. He came and he didn't see anything under there, but he did place strychnine eggs under the house. And then he said, I was concerned because I didn't want poison under my house if I had a little miniature dachshund. And I, of course, didn't want her getting in there and getting the poison eggs. And he said, no, not to worry, that he had boarded it completely up. If anything was under the house, it would not get out or nothing could get in. So we went on like that for a week or so. And one day I was missing my little dog, Heidi. And I got to looking around the house, and she had gotten in there, and she had gotten hold of a strychnine egg, and she came out and died. And that was when we looked for another house. I couldn't do it anymore. That was just too much. To me, it wasn't safe anymore. And right next door to that house on the same property, they rented out an upstairs apartments. And I think it was just like an upstairs apartment and downstairs apartment. But um, one day I was out in the backyard, in our backyard of the house, and I looked over, and from my backyard, I could see the downstairs apartment door was open. And I never knew who was living in there, but the door was wide open, and I walked over by it and looked in, and everything was covered in blood. And I thought, well, the house isn't the only thing. Then um, I had a friend, actually, it was a wife of my husband, and she was over one evening, and she always called herself a white witch. She carried tarot cards around with her, and I was telling her what was going on, and she looked at her tarot cards, and she told me what she thought was that there was a man that was killed and thrown into that canal, and he never was at peace, and that's who was haunting my house. Um, anyway, I didn't know. I guess I didn't know what to believe then, but and I didn't know what to think about my friend being a white witch either, but she was kind of scary. But anyway, later that evening, it was my husband and her husband were gone, and they had gone on a short trip, and they were due back that night. That's why she was waiting with me, and they never got back. So she went ahead and went home, and I was sitting at the dining room table, just looking at the tarot cards, and she told me which one represented my husband and what the cards meant. So I was just sitting there at the table, just looking at the cards, and all of a sudden, I had the card out in front of me that was supposed to represent my husband. And all of a sudden, my chair flung backwards with me in it and didn't go completely over. It just tossed me backward and pushed me back up to the table. And I knew in the back of my mind, just sit here and wait. You're going to get a call. Something just happened. And then about 20 minutes later, I got a call, and they'd been in an accident. Car had gone into a ditch. And just the same time, I got thrown back in the chair. So that was just an odd another thing that happened in the house. The only other thing I could say about the house is years and years later, my sister was working at a school in Springfield, and there was another teacher that she met that day, and they got to talking, and he actually lived in Klamath Falls quite a few years before then too, and he went on to tell her about this house that he lived in on Homedale that was so haunted that they had to get out of it also. Come to find out, it was the same house. He identified it as being next to the canal and a cinder block home. So kind of verified what I went through also.
Did your husband also believe everything that was happening? How did you convince him that you needed to move?
At the time, of course, he couldn't deny it, but I think actually it scared him, and he didn't want to. Later on, I'd say, when we were talking to somebody, remember what happened? He said, "Oh yeah, I don't know what that was," but yeah, he never would really admit it, except one time my brother and his girlfriend came and to stay the night with us, and I gave them the master bedroom, and I told him, you know uh, it should be fine because this doesn't happen all the time, but there's weird noises in that room. And he kind of brushed it off and said, no big deal. And they went and to stay the night in the bedroom. I heard him get up about midnight, and I got up to see what was going on, and he said, I'm sorry, but we can't stay in that room. He said, there's something in there. And he wasn't one to come up with this stuff, but to this day, he'll talk about it, how scared he was. And that's as far as he elaborated about that. They got ready and left.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was quite an experience. And I think what happens is sometimes when you're more in tune to that kind of a thing, it happens to that person more than other people that aren't really in tune to it or believe. I believe that's mainly why things happen to me, and I have uh, dreams that come true, and I believe that's what that was about.
Was that your first strange experience that you had in your life?
That's the first one I could remember.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was, like I said, in the early 70s. I'm kind of thinking like 73, 74. Um, I've heard of experiences before then, and I played around with Ouija boards. No, that I had other experiences with Ouija boards to where they actually worked a lot for me. And then when I played it one time with a friend, we were scared. We were really scared from what happened when what it said. And this was when I was older. I wasn't a teenager or anything. I was older. We were scared to even touch it after what happened with it, and we ended up. I said we've got to get it out of the house, and we did. Put it in the trunk and drive as far away from the house as we could and dump it.
Oh, wow.
It started. We were asking about a friend, and I can't. It seemed like it was a relative of hers, and it got really evil. And it said we had actually contacted a demon, bad spirit, and I was so scared. I was the most scared I've ever been from that thing because it talked about death and dying and what was going to happen to us, and yeah, I'll never touch a Ouija board again.
Ouija boards are really interesting. I remember your granddaughter, my cousin Crystal, introducing me to the Ouija board.
Oh.
And that was probably one of the most frightening experiences of my life.
Really?
Was doing that with her. I've never touched one again since then.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That once you get that feeling that it's creeping towards the evil side of things, you just want to close that door and not look at that again.
You don't want to do that. I think maybe some people can play with them and just have fun, but some people have too much of the psychic in them, and for somehow these demons, for lack of another word, can come out. I don't quite understand it, but I don't want to go there ever again.
Now, you mentioned that your sister is sensitive.
My sister is very sensitive. She actually sees images where I don't. She sees images and she sees people. We played when we were teenagers. We played the Ouija board, and we got to asking it silly questions. And I remember one time we asked it. My dad was out of work at that time, and we asked it, "Where is Dad going to work? Where is he going to get another job?" And it started spelling out this crazy word that we had never heard. It started with a Z. It ended up spelling Zarowinski. I had never heard that name before, Zarowinski. It was just a couple days later he got a job with Zarowinski and Sons painting company out of Oakland.
Oh, wow.
Went to work for Zarowinski and Sons. It also talked about an accident my sister was going to be in that did happen. So,
did any of that come from your parents? Was your mom or dad
in
tune at all?
They've never said anything. My grandmother did. My grandmother said she saw her dead brother came to her, and I was really young, so I didn't really listen to it a lot. But yeah, my grandmother said she had things that happened to her. I wish I had talked more to her, but we were kind of shut up as kids. You let the grown-ups talk, and you don't. Mainly, that's the way kids were back then. But I have tried to repress what I feel or what I think, what I dream, and because bad experiences with that. The last one was a really scary experience, and I don't want it to, what I dream, to cause something bad to happen to someone. For the most part, they've been good.
Yeah. Does it have anything to do with the fact that if you were to have a dream or a premonition about somebody or something bad happened, you maybe wouldn't even want to say anything to them for fear of them maybe judging you or looking at you sideways? Maybe but then if you don't say anything and something really happens, that weight's kind of on you.
But would I prevent it? Would I be able to prevent it? I don't know. I don't know that. I just know that the last one that I let myself think about, a girl died, and I always blame myself for that. Even though I had no way, for some reason it just came to me in my dream, and that was very scary.
Yeah.
To me. But for the most part, I dreamt that my husband then was going to be hit by a car, and in the morning I told him, be very careful today. I had a dream that you were hit by a car, and he kind of just sloughed it off. But that day at work, they asked him to be a flagger, and a car went through the cones and hit him. He landed on top of the car. Luckily, he wasn't hurt bad, but he was hit by a car that day.
Oh, wow.
I know. I had a good experience with my daughter, Kathy. She had told me one day that she was really upset because she was in the grocery store and lost her wallet full of credit cards, money, whatever, and she couldn't find it. And so that bothered me because she was so upset, and of course losing all her ID and credit cards. And that night I dreamt about it, and she said she had gone into the store and told them it was missing, and did they find it? And they looked and looked. Nobody had seen it. So I had a dream that night that it was under a counter on the service desk, and it was just laying there. And I saw it in my dream. So I called her the next day. I said, Kathy, go and ask them about the wallet again. It's sitting there. And I saw the guy that found it. It was one of the guys that goes out and, bags groceries and collects the carts. And he found it. He put it under there. And she went in, and there it was, sitting under the counter.
That's amazing.
Everything what did she say to you? She said, you're not going to believe this, Mom. I found my wallet. It's just like you said. And I told her exactly what the guy looked like. And she said, you're right.
Were you even shocked at all when it all happened exactly
I guess
like
I
that?
was. I'm
Yeah.
like, gosh, I'm glad I dreamt that, because she wasn't going to go back because she'd already been there.
Right.
But I think he found it later. It was in the cart outside. She left it right there in the basket. So
Wow, that's amazing.
it's amazing. Yeah, there was one more that dream that I had that was kind of. Oh, this one is pretty sad because my best friend that I was raised with since I was 12. We were best friends, and we moved as we got older, and moved away from each other, but usually kept in contact by phone, maybe once every few months. Then I got to realizing one night I haven't heard from her in a while. I need to give her a call, and I went to bed with that thought, and I dreamt that night that I had looked and seen an obituary for her, that she was dead. And I couldn't believe it. I woke up thinking, what in the world? Why would I dream that she's gone? Why would I dream that I saw an obituary? Somebody would have told me for sure. And I thought, you know what? I can get on the computer and I can look up obituaries and look up her name. And just like I saw it in my dream, it was her. And her daughter decided not to call me. It was a very tragic suicide. And that's how I found out about my best friend's death. So, the last one I had is, and why I don't want to have them anymore, is I was working at a high school. I had a little kiosk that I cooked at for the kids. And this one little girl, I call her little girl, she was a junior or sophomore or junior, and she would always come to my kiosk and she would get a smoothie. And she was in a wheelchair. She had cerebral palsy, but very nice, friendly little girl. And I got to talking to her quite a bit. And then Christmas break came, and told everybody, have a good break, and I'll see you when you get back. I got back off of a Christmas break, and I working for a few days, and I never saw Melissa. She never came to my kiosk. And that's odd. Why? Where is she? While I was on break, I dreamt that she was dead. And I thought, that's crazy. There was nothing wrong with her besides being in a wheelchair. And I thought, why would I dream that? I asked one of the kids, where's Melissa? Why haven't we seen her? And they said, you haven't heard, she died during Christmas break, pneumonia. And I thought, did my dream have something to do with that? You know, why would I dream such a horrible thing when I had no clue there was, you know, going to be anything wrong with her? Anyway, that was the last time I wanted to recognize any of my dreams.
She kind of shut down.
Kind of shut down. I kind of blocked my mind now because, even though some of them were good things, like the wallet,
Mm-hmm.
that was a happy thing, but I don't know.
The bads are bad.
Yeah, the bads are bad. So, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting. My family, my sister and my brother, they have a lot of things that have happened to them, and I don't know why it's us, but for some reason we've gotten that. Maybe it's a gift, maybe it isn't. I don't know.
Gift or a curse.
A gift or a curse, yeah.
But you talk openly with each other about this
Yeah,
stuff?
we do.
Are you the only people that you really talk about it with?
Unless other parts of my family, like you, like the grandkids like to hear. Sometimes I'll tell the story of the haunted house, around Halloween, and they love to hear the scary stories. But I try not to say a lot of things to people that look at me like, you're a few bricks short of a load or something.
Right.
Some people just don't want to believe. Some people are very religious, don't like to hear this.
They kind of block.
They block that.
Yeah.
That's not in their religion.
Right.
I also thoroughly believe, and I don't talk about this to a lot of people, I thoroughly believe in reincarnation, and a lot of people don't want to hear that either.
So let's talk about that a little bit. you've recognized that you do believe there's spirits with us.
I think, oh, yeah, definitely spirits from, the house that I lived in. But uh, I thoroughly believe that this isn't the only life we've lived. I, there, there are places that I love to go to still that I know I used to live there in past life. I know I did. And I feel at home there for a crazy reason. And I believe that if we think about it long enough and hard enough, a lot of us can identify with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think that there's some people that linger, that don't just cross right over or get reincarnated, that they
Yeah, I
kind
think
of...
so. Maybe a tragic death. I think a tragic death, a lot of times they can't cross over. That's why I kind of believed when the friend of mine told me that someone was murdered and thrown in that canal. That was a horrible death, and I guess he never was able to cross over. Or that I don't know what else to think what that was. I don't know what else that could have been.
Now, as long as I've known you, I feel like you've always been drawn to. Well, I know that you're drawn to old places.
Definitely, I love antiques. I love old houses. Yeah.
And do you think that at all ties into the experiences that you've had? And
Maybe.
do you think that maybe some of these older places have maybe some more history, I guess?
Oh yeah.
The possibility of there being something interesting with the place?
I think so. I think the person that lived there long enough, maybe there's a spirit there. I really believe in being very careful about antique mirrors.
Oh.
Antique mirrors can hold the image of that person. My brother has a really scary experience about an antique mirror. And they say that, you want to be careful what you bring in your house, especially if it's a mirror and image that person. So, yeah, I do believe that. But I love antiques. I love old things. Um, the place that I feel most home is Virginia City. I believe I lived there.
Really?
I believe I lived there. And back in the 1800s, I believe, it just feels like home. I just want to be there.
When did you visit?
Oh, I visited many, many, many times. Every time I go to Reno, I have to go to Virginia City. I have to see it again. And like I said, I feel home. As soon as we get close to Virginia City, I just feel real good.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you fully believe that you lived there at some point?
I fully believe I lived there, yeah. I think I was killed. I think I had a violent death there, but yeah, I believe I worked there in Virginia City. I believe I worked in like one of the saloons, and it was a rough and tumble town, but it still has that home feeling to me. Yeah.
Do you think that there'll be a point that you'll open yourself back up
Yeah.
to being receptive?
I just talked to my brother the other day, and he said you should. You shouldn't repress it because it might come to something good. So you shouldn't repress it. And he said I always have a good feeling when I talk to you about this, and I think you need to. So I might do what he said.
Yeah.
And just might make myself a little bit more open to it. I have a weird way, and I was telling my brother about this because we talk about how youth is wasted on the young, you know. And I told him, when things go wrong in my life and I get frustrated, the first thing I think of, and this is kind of a crazy thing when you think about it, the first thing I think of is next time I'm going to do better. So I know deep in my inner thoughts there's a next time. And every time we come back, we do a little bit better until we get it right. I'm hoping I get it right next time.
Yeah.
This time hasn't been right.
Well, I mean, we're here because of you
Well, that's true.
and the choices that you made. So I
Yeah.
am thankful
Oh, okay.
for the choices that you've made that brought you here, however many lives that took.
Right.
Um,
Well,
it,
that's a plus. That's a big plus. So, I think each time you get a little wiser, maybe if you can carry that on and a little better. And I just think next time, boy, I'm going to do it better because, you know,
lessons learned.
lessons learned. If you could only carry it over
Right.
and know what you have learned,
Mm-hmm.
if you know what you've learned, then it's all for the good, right?
Yeah, I think so. That that's really interesting what you said about the mirrors, and now I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit.
Yeah.
In today's day and age, you just hear a lot, maybe more in regards to pictures and videos,
Oh, that's true.
and how that's kind of an awkward thing, capturing somebody's
Right.
soul, kind of.
Yeah.
Um, but the mirrors, especially vintage antique
Mm-hmm.
type mirrors, that for some reason is a lot creepier to me.
It is because people, especially people that have them for years and years, and they've stood there every day and looking into that mirror. It doesn't seem alien to me at all that part of their soul's in that mirror. And yeah, I'm very careful with mirrors, antique mirrors.
Well, I'm going to be now.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Good.
Oh man, I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah, I'm anxious for you to talk to Jack. You'll have to remind him, tell me the story about the antique mirror.
Okay.
Because I don't know if I could get it right, exactly what he went through, but it was pretty terrifying for him. And he'll definitely tell you that.
Was there anything in any of the houses you lived in Keno?
There was one, the kids thought, yeah, there was one that we bought a home that it was a mobile home, and then the man started to add on to the house, like 3 more bedrooms and 2 more baths. Um, and then it wasn't even blueprinted. He didn't have a blueprint to go by. He just started building, and then he committed suicide. Not in the house. He had a shop out on Highway 39, and he boarded it up, and the carbon monoxide, whatever, from the car, he turned it on and went in there and killed himself. Anyway, we bought the home and managed to finish building it even without the blueprints that he didn't never had. And the only thing there, and the kids said something's weird here in this house, and they always said that. The only thing I ever noticed was a horrible smell of death, and it was like under the house, and we checked the house out.
Sorry, do you want these?
Yep.
Fluoride tablets.
We checked the house out, under the house, never could find anything, but it was the most rank smell of something dead. That's the only thing that I really knew about that house.
As far as you know, did any of your kids come away with sensitivities?
Tammy does. Tammy's had a lot of things happen in her house. Bob doesn't like to admit it. He's just like his dad. It might, not be manly. I don't know what he thinks, but he just foo-foos me when I talk about it. And when we lived in this house, he was probably maybe 5, so he doesn't remember.
So if he's got it, he's suppressing it.
Yes, he's suppressing it. Yeah. So, but Tammy does. Things have happened to her. In fact, she'd like to talk to you too, if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Call her.
Well, I want to thank you again for sharing your stories with me. You have had some extremely strange, unexplainable things happen for sure. And I hope there are people out there who will hear this and maybe feel a little less crazy because of it. I think it's important that we share our stories for that reason and many others. And I do hope that you choose to open yourself up again one day and share those stories as well. I want to thank you for listening. And please reach out if you have any stories to tell at Life Unexplained Podcast at gmail.com.